Today we will be learning how to add and subtract fractions in mixed numbers. During class the last couple of days, we wrote down some steps when we are adding and subtracting fractions. The first thing that we wrote down is that anytime we see a subtraction problem with fraction, we're going to turn it to an addition problem by adding the opposite. The same rules we use with integers. Second step, we are going to change any mixed numbers to improper fractions. So if we have the fraction 2 2/3, we're going to use the wheel, and we're going to turn it to an improper fraction. So we'll do 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 2. So that equals 8 over 3. Our third step is to get common denominators. After we do get common denominators, we will add the numerators. The denominators stay the same. Then we will simplify and check to see if our answer makes sense. So let's take a look at our first problem. Our first problem says negative 2/3 minus a half. First thing that I notice is it is a subtraction problem, so I am going to change it to addition by adding the opposite. And remember, I always put the negative sign with the numerator. All right, second thing that I'm going to do is get common denominators. So I want to think of something that 3 and 2 both divide into. All right, I know they both go into 6, so I'm going to change the denominators to 6. I'm going to change this one to 6 first. So in my head, I think, how do I get from 2 to 6? Well, I know that's times 3. So on the top, I need to do negative 1 times 3, which is negative 3. These two are equivalent fractions, so I'm going to use this one now. All right, then I'm going to come over here and change this to 6. So I think, how do I get from 3 to 6? And it's times 2. So on the top, I'm going to do times 2. So negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. So here's my new problem. I have negative 4, 6 plus negative 3, 6. All right, now that I have common denominators, I can add the numerators. So I'll circle my numerators, and I'm going to add negative 4 plus negative 3, which is negative 7. Denominator stays the same, and that is 6. Okay, my last step is to change it to an improper fraction, or to a mixed number. So I'm going to see how many times 6 goes into 7, which is once. There's 1 left over, so it is 1 and 1/6. And then it's a negative fraction. So my answer is negative 1 and 1/6. The last thing that I want to do is check to see if my answer makes sense. All right, I'm adding 2 negative fractions, so I'm going to get a negative answer, so it does make sense. All right, let's check out the second problem. This time I have 3 fractions that I'm going to add or subtract. All right, I'm going to do it the same way. First thing I'm going to do is add the opposite. Again, I'm going to add the opposite. All right, now I'm going to see if I can get a common denominator. All right, I see 2, 5, and 10. I know they all go into 10, so I'm going to change these ones to tenths. All right, so this, I know to get from 2 to 10, it's times 5, so I'm going to do negative 1 times 5, and I get negative 5 plus, I'm going to change this to tenths. 5 times 2 is 10, so negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And finally, this fraction stays the same. All right, my denominator is 10, so I know my answer is going to be in tenths. All right, so now I will add the numerators. So I have negative 5 plus negative 8 plus positive 1. So negative 8 and 5 is negative 13 plus positive 1 is negative 12. All right, it's an improper fraction, so I'm going to change it to a mixed number. So 10 goes into 12, goes in there once, with 2 left over, so it's 1 and 2/10, and it's negative, so negative. I'm going to look at my answer again. It's still not simplified. I can simplify 2/10, divide by 2. All right, so my final answer is negative 1 and 1/5. All right, let's try a problem that has mixed numbers. All right, so this problem, we have 5½ minus 10 and 2/3. I'm going to start by adding the opposite. Second thing I'm going to do is change these mixed numbers to improper fractions. So I'm going to do the wheel. I'm going to do 2 times 5, 10, plus 1 is 11 halves, plus 3 times 10 is 30, plus 2 is 32/3, and it's negative. All right, now I need to get a common denominator, so I'm going to change these both to 6. All right, I'm going to change them both to 6. So I have 2 To get from 2 to 6, I'm going to do times 3, and 11 times 3 is 33. Right over here, it's times 2, so I need to do 32 times 2, which is negative 64. All right, I'm going to just rewrite my new problem. So I have 33 6 plus negative 64 6. Again, I'm going to look at my numerators. I have negative 64, positive 33. I know I have more negatives. And then I'm going to subtract 64 minus 33. And I get 31, negative 31 over 6. All right, not done yet. I want to change that back to a mixed number. So 6 goes into 35 times. It's negative, and then there is 1 left over. So my answer is negative 5 and 1/6. All right, so let's go on to our next problem. All right, this time I'm still subtracting fractions. Still gonna do it the same way. So I have 9 minus 2.5. So I'm gonna add the opposite. All right, now I'm gonna change this one to a mixed, or to improper fraction. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5 halves. And then I have 9 plus 5 halves, or plus negative 5 halves. All right, now the next thing I want to do, if I want to add these fractions together, I need a common denominator. Right now, the whole number 9, I can write that as 9 over 1. That still is the same as 9, because 9 divided by 1 is 9. All right, now I can get a common denominator. I'm going to change this to halves. All right, so I'm going to think, how do I get from 1 to 2? Times 2. So 9 times 2 is 18. All right, so now I'm going to take my two fractions, add them together. So I have 18 and negative 5. Okay, so if I do 18, take away 5, I get 13 over 2, 13 halves. All right, I'm going to change that back to a mixed number. 2 goes into 13 6 times. All right, so that's 12, so there's 1 left over. So my final answer is 6.5, which makes sense. So I have 9, take away that 2.5 would leave me with about 6.5. Let's try one more problem. All right, I have 4 1/3 minus 8. And so I'm going to add the opposite. All right, I'm going to start by changing this to a mixed number. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13 over 3, plus negative 8. And if there's not a fraction, I can put it under over 1. All right, let's get a common denominator now. My common denominator would be 3. So I'm going to do 1 times 3. Negative 8 times 3 is negative 24. All right, now I have a common denominator. So let's look at our numerators. I have 13 and negative 24. All right, so I'm going to subtract them. I have more negatives. So my answer is going to be negative. I have 11 more. So my answer is negative 11 thirds. Okay. I want to change that back to a mixed number. So 3 goes into 11 3 times, which is 9. So there will be 2 left over. So my answer is 3 2/3. Oops, but I forgot my negative sign. Make sure I keep that. So my answer is negative 3 2/3.